Life is a journey, and if you're willing to ride it, to accept it, and just be comfortable with where you are in life. Like I think where the problem can come is when we start comparing ourselves to what we should be doing, what others are doing, and that's where all of the problems occur, because now you feel inadequate with yourself. But it takes over the mental space of the fun and the joy, the adventure, the things that really bring humans life.
Welcome to The Path to Wealth, the show about well-being, fulfillment and financial freedom. And I'm your host, Hannes Henschel. Hello everyone, welcome back to The Path to Wealth. I'm your host, Hannes Henschel. In this episode, we will hear the inspiring story of a successful engineer shifting into the world of real estate investing. Let's hear the career journey and experiences of Anna Tan. The managing partner of Sweet Life Multifamily, Anna and Peter Tan have acquired, operated and invested in real estate for over 10 years. In multifamily alone, they have invested over 1,500 doors and have over 100 million under management. They also operated a property management company that handles a single-family home portfolio. Welcome to the show, Anna.
Thank you, Hans. I'm excited to be here.
Of course. I mean, we already went pretty deep before we even started recording, so I'm even more excited about our conversation now than I was before.
Absolutely. Let's get down and dirty.
So let's start a bit with real estate. Why did you guys seek out financial freedom, and why real estate?
So our real estate journey started with the single family homes, and it was more of a gift of education more than us seeking out. This was over 10 years ago, and as a wedding present, my parents actually gifted us with one of their rental homes. And they've been renting renting out, operating single family homes for quite a while. They've been buying commercial properties and all this and that. And I never really understood why they were doing it. And I've never really took an interest, but they always did it in the background. And so my parents offered me this house as a wedding gift, and we could have either opted to, at the time I was living at my mom or my parents' house, we could have either opted to move in or try to continue renting it out and be landlords and open up essentially our first business and kind of see what it was like. And so we opted to do that. We continued living at my mom's house. So my friends actually made fun of us for a number of years because of that. But we saved quite a bit of money doing that, and we learned to be business owners for the first time. And that was such a wonderful experience to be able to gift your children. And I think that's what I'm going to be doing to my girls as well, but more on the commercial real estate side. I'm like, hey, here's an apartment, like, figure it out, right? But that's kind of how we started. And and after over 10 years, we've seen the benefits of it. Like, it's can be self-sustaining if you do it right. It can be such a great transferable thing. You know, if you do have a normal W-2, you can transfer those skills from owning your own business to, you know, your main career, or if you have a main job. And it's just like a wonderful skill set, because you can't really learn that in your traditional education. If you go to university, those are things that they don't really teach you. And so I feel like that's something that we really greatly benefited from. Recently, we've jumped into commercial real estate, and the reason for that is because we wanted to scale faster. We wanted to do more while doing less, which I know is kind of opposite, but we're able to acquire more units and do more with other partners in a much shorter amount of time than we would have ever been able to do it on our own. And it's opened up so many doors. And, of course, like meeting you as well, Hans. And it's been such a wonderful journey. And I highly recommend anyone that's remotely interested in real estate to jump in sooner than later.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point. And I think it's so cool that they gave you such an interesting, different kind of gift. And it could have been taken a different way. You could have also just moved in and it would have played out completely different. And instead you chose to, take the mockery of your friends. And I think 10 years later, you have the last laugh. And you learn so much, and you build equity in the process, and you build up the skill set to actually be a more scalable kind of landlord. And I think this is really cool. And it's honestly something that now, as you told the story, something came to my mind that I missed to see early. I clearly remember one conversation that I had with it wasn't really a friend, more like an acquaintance. This is some 14 years back now. And he's like, yeah, we just bought this house with my family and we're going to rent out the part. And I completely missed it, what he was suggesting, and he was in his mid-20s back then. And so it's cool that the two of you got it and that you sticked with it. And then you on top of it kind of learned and grew into it. And now you seek out the scalability of multifamily real estate. So I think that played out really nicely what your parents planted there as a seed.
Yeah, it was great, but I definitely wouldn't say we were on top of it back then. We were, all the mistakes that you could possibly have done, we probably checked every single box. And back then they didn't have all of the education programs, and we were using AOL, I think, at the time, or I don't think Google was quite around yet. So we were still trying to figure it out, and everything was DIY. We do it yourself, and we would definitely do a lot of things differently had we had the knowledge that we had today, which is why these podcasts that you're putting together, and there's so much resources available for anyone that wants to get started to jump ahead 10 years instead of kind of taking the slow snail mail route that we did.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling. Now we're drowning in information, even on the real estate space. There is so many podcasts, so many newsletters, so much material. So, but which maybe leads us to another one. How did you then make sense of the space? Besides your own learnings, how did you choose maybe the first mentors?
I think you can get kind of, especially with this time of age, you can get really bombarded with information overload. And if you're really committed, you just kind of have to weigh your pros and cons, figure out which mentorship group or education platform, whatever it is, resonates with you. And if you're serious, you just jump in. I think the first group that we joined in had a pretty high entry cost. And being newer to the workforce, we didn't have that much of savings. And it was daunting. It was really scary to jump in. And I was kind of like, are you sure about that? But end of the day, if you have a goal in mind, whatever the financial costs or burden or fee it takes to jump in, you just kind of, it's similar to if you were to go to college or university, how much does that cost? And you're able to kind of truncate everything. What does the support system look like? And if you're serious and you pay that much, I promise you're going to be a very good student, and you're going to hit it off really fast. So I think those are some considerations. We've actually joined several different mentorship groups since then, and we've kind of used them, and I think that's really what helped us propel to where we are. And I think the main thing is just networking and learning from other people and kind of seeing how they do things. And as times change and things change, it's really important to keep up with what's current within our industry or whatever niche that you're looking for, and just try to work and improve over time.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, in the beginning, we don't even know what we don't know. Just like when you started out with that first rental, and it's the same. And I think that's where having guidance, going through different materials, speaking to different people, not necessarily mentors, but even peers, networking in general, helps a lot, to kind of see what's possible, or where we can, with our own experience, find a unique angle in something. Not that we need to reinvent the wheel, but I found that all of us, and that's something interesting in life, where you cannot really connect the dots while you're doing things. But then when you look back at it, sometimes we have a unique experience that comes from a completely different place that we can bring into something here, And I always find that very interesting. There's those random things that I learned in completely out of context situation in a completely different aspect of my life, and then they apply here.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really important to not just focus on maybe the one area that you're looking at or the one business, but kind of having a more macro view of things, which really gives you a great view on and being able to connect dots that maybe that weren't there if you were zoomed in too fast. I actually, one of the things that I look at, or I'm enrolled in, is master class, and one of the instructors, they talk about zooming in and zooming out, and how important that is. Like, you need to know the business, but you also need to be able to take a step back and see the big picture, and whether or not you're moving in the direction that you're intending to go. Because if you're too much in the weeds, you may miss that, right? You may miss the details. You actually might physically miss a weed as well because it's 5 feet away. But that's really important to know the actual business, so that you can actually work on it and improve upon it. But you also need to be able to take a step back and see, is this the painting that you're trying to put together? Are these the right colors? Is this the right style? Is this the right placement? Whatever it is, the right frame. Otherwise, because you need both, and you have to be flexible to do both at the same time. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, as you were saying that, I was thinking, is it even the right canvas to begin with? Like, is this, or, because sometimes people just get caught up in what they were doing, or in what they thought they should be doing, and what they were taught they should do by their parents, all of those different nuances of why we do things. And it kind of turns out that if you really zoom back, you would be pursuing something very different.
Yeah. The way that we were doing things when we first started was the way how my parents were doing things. And it doesn't mean it was right or wrong. It was just, that's what they knew, and that's what I knew. And so if I had maybe taken the opportunity to zoom out, take a couple steps back and see what are other people doing in the same space, I think it would have made my life a lot easier. So, yeah.
But then again, we don't know what we don't know. And there's a learning curve to everything. Yeah. And I think my brother once gave me really good advice. This is one of the early investments I did. It was like a private investment I did in the company, and it didn't pan out well. And my brother was like, there's really no reason for you to regret anything, because at any given time you make best judgment based on what you knew. And obviously someone who is a lot more sophisticated at investment, he would have maybe just looked at the situation or the manager or the numbers and be like, yeah, maybe pass, But then, given the knowledge I had in that particular moment in life, this was the best call I could take, I thought, or I did. And so there's really never any reason to regret. It's just like a situation, and then it's up to us to learn from it and move on, And I mean, we spoke a little bit about before, there's, in my worldview now, I'm really trying to look at things as there is no more problems as such. There's just situations, and everything else is just a label.
Yeah. So, and I know we kind of briefly talked about it, but it's just, you could have looked at that situation and identified yourself as, oh, that was, that you failed at something, that you lost money, that you know, made a mistake. But really, to me, that's just a mistake because you're able to learn from it. And I'm pretty sure you won't make the same mistake again. And yeah, it probably cost a little more than you would have liked, but but you learn from it. I think that's important, right?
Yeah. But it wasn't as smooth as it sounds now. It was a painful me giving into, okay, it wasn't like some quick, now it sounds like, I was just levitating over the problem and I'm like, yeah, it's okay. It was more like a painful going through the valley of pain. And I always like to say that, if I'm not willing to listen, life has its ways to tune up the volume. And I usually look at the moments in life when it gets a little painful. It's because I haven't been listening and I haven't been tuned in. And then usually when I start listening, things kind of even out, and then it becomes like just another situation and it's part of the journey.
Life is a journey, and if you're willing to ride it, to accept it, and just be comfortable with where you are in life. Like I think where the problem can come is when we start comparing ourselves to what we should be doing, what others are doing, and that's where all of the problems occur, because now you feel inadequate with yourself, or you feel that your partner is inadequate, or and then that sense of inadequacy, that sense of doubt starts to creep in, and insecurities, and it takes over all of your mental space, which you should be reserving that. Now I just use should, I probably shouldn't do that, but it takes over the mental space of the fun and the joy, the adventure, the things that really bring humans life. Because if we're just using our space to just compare ourselves and be upset about things, and not just being comfortable with who we are, just being us, being just a human, being person, being here and being present, it makes us in a worser place. And that's something that I've learned, started to accept myself, that it's okay to just be who I am. And if I am able to succeed, whatever that means to me, great. If I didn't, I'm still great. Like, I think it's such a different way of thinking, because the way that we've grown up, we're used to being compared to everything, or we're being measured by something, or you have to do this in order to be happy. And I think it's taken me quite a while to kind of figure out, you can just be who you are and who you want to be, and that's perfectly 100% okay.
But that takes some insight, because I think Jim Rohn sometimes speaks about that if you are, I don't know the exact example that he speaks, but basically he says, if you're a farmer, and you're just doing your thing, and you're doing small thing just for yourself, and you're smashing success in your own right because you're doing exactly what you want to do. But you have to get to that point of self-realization or self-reflection to know this is what you want to do. And I think that's a bit tricky, because for me, the journey always was more chipping away at what wasn't it, was more obvious. I'm like, I could tell by the way I would feel it, okay, this is not it. Okay, this is not it. Or I would be looking at situations, or I would be looking at people ahead of myself in the career path that I was on. And then I would look at their life and like, this is not it. Like, I know that if I get where they are right now, this is not where I want to be. It doesn't feel right. And for me, it was like that journey of of chipping away, and which brought me closer to, okay, this is it. And then maybe at the same time, I don't know, maybe for you as a woman this is different, but I had to learn how to trust my intuition a lot more. This was definitely nothing that I was connected with originally. And even in that business incident that we spoke about earlier that failed, there was a sense of intuition. But the interesting thing is that I logically talked myself into it. And only in hindsight, when I allowed myself to reflect on it, it kind of came up. That there was a sense of intuition. And from that on, I started tuning in a lot more into that.
I think that's quite interesting. I think for me, it was more, my intuition could be clouded by self-doubt. and so I have kind of this inner dialogue within myself between whatever it is that I'm having a conversation to myself that day.
Don't worry, most people do.
Wait, was that me? And I think that self-doubt creates a lot of fear. And so there's so many times where I think it's my intuition, but maybe it's more the self-doubt and the fear talking. And sometimes I think you just kind of have to release that and just jump in and take the educational learning and see where it goes. And maybe it costs more, maybe it doesn't. But I think end of the day, I think that's kind of, for me, is the battle between those two, like intuition and then the fear. And I don't know, sometimes you just have to kind of ignore one or the other and just go in and see what happens. Otherwise, you don't really learn, you don't really grow, and you don't see what the next possibility is. Because I think once you go through that experience, that's what opens doors for you, or maybe it opens your eyes or whatever it is, but that kind of propels you to the next step, regardless of the outcome of that decision.
So what is the current next step that you're onto? What are the next possibilities that are in your and Peter's life right now?
Well, that's a really good one. So what we started doing is we started kind of, I don't want to say categorizing, but I think everyone has this too. Everyone kind of has different facets of their life that they're trying to figure out. And Peter and I are actually on this journey together to be more compassionate with each other, to take our marriage, to a level 10. And not to say like, we weren't in a bad place, but we wanted to take it to where it was when we were first dating. And we actually thought that wasn't possible because, you kind of see in the news, you kind of see, in TV movies that, after you've been together for whatever, after kids, things just fizzle out, right? Like that's normal. And
well, it's normal.
We actually are,
in the sense that we see it everywhere. Sorry for interrupting. I was just like, it's normal because it's what we see everywhere. And we have to consciously choose not to make that normal.
Exactly. And so that's what has changed, because I think we were like, this doesn't have to be normal, because we've experienced bliss, we've experienced joy, the fire, passion, the passionate tension, and let's bring that back. Like there's no reason for us to not be able to do that because society says this is normal. Like there's no reason for us to follow that route, right? Because that's only what we knew. That's what we knew. And so kind of going back to my example of, my parents, like this is how they started real estate. This is what they learned. Like for us, if this is all we're exposed to, then that's kind of what we do, right? But we zoomed out, we took a look around, and we said, hey, there's actually, maybe programs or whatnot, but we can achieve this again. Like it was it seems so simple when I'm speaking to you now, but when we're kind of zoomed in, we're in the relationship, it's really hard to see. But when we take a step back, we're like, oh, this is where we want to go. Like, let's, kind of fire it up again. Let's, see how we can make things how it was back in high school or, whatever. So that's kind of, I guess I know, totally different route, but that's the main thing that we're working on. And it's really exciting. And, I don't know. It's something that we're both working on, and I know it starts with us, like individuals, but we're really intentional in trying to improve our marriage and that part of our life, and just bringing the fire back.
I like that, because it's also one of the most crucial, most important, closest relationships we have in our life, and all the money in business and real estate is all fine and it's all nice. But I think we've seen more often than not that if the relationships get too far in the back burner, then life suffers on a different degree. And I think it was also Tony Robbins spoke about how he had like that amazing day. His company went public. The same day he was in an arena, it was like some 15,000 people. But then he came back home, and back then his I think it wasn't wife, maybe life partner, like she was not happy that day, and she kind of cut him down, and he was like, everything else didn't matter because the relationship was not in tune. Like all of the success that he had the same day, all of the love he got from those hundreds and thousands of people in that arena, all of the financial success he had in that day, nothing mattered the minute he walked into the door back home. And that's why I think you're really working on the absolute foundation of a crucial piece to a very joyful and fulfilled life.
It's and I know through that, like we have seen, like through our real estate business, we have seen what we're able to achieve when we trust each other, and when we're on the same page. And we're not always on the same page. Everyone's human, but when you're in sync, like you can achieve whatever it is that you need to achieve, and it's probably the most gratifying and most fulfilling experience that you could give yourself and you could give to your partner. And not only that, you're showing, if you have children, but those close around you, how to be successful in their relationships or career or your business objectives. Like, this is how you do it. And they're always watching, and so it really lays not only the foundation for longevity in your love life, but also generations, hopefully the next generation and maybe the one after that. So I think the gift is a lot bigger than just us.
I love this, and you make such a point, and it really hits home for me, because I don't have any role models in my life that were truly successful in business together or financially, and also managed to sustain a relationship that was like really loving. Most people that I know, including my parents, that had financial success to some degree, they usually sacrifice their relationship in the process.
Same. My parents, they end up separating. They were financially from a business standpoint, they were very successful, but the relationship was not something that I wanted to follow. And I guess from that standpoint, it was an example of what not to do, but it kind of led me to where I am today. Like okay, how do we how do we do it, right? Like, my path isn't going to be the same as your path, but I know that there is a path, and so that's what makes our upcoming project, our current project, exciting.
I love it. This is truly the path to wealth here, because I think you truly have your priorities straight. I love it.
Thank you. It took a while.
And I'm sure that the journey wasn't that smooth, but I'm glad glad we got here, and I'm glad you guys are on track.
Thanks. We'll have a Valentine's Day special. We'll talk all about it.
Yeah, that's a funny one. Yeah. So this is too funny. So what are, maybe besides this crucial foundational piece, what are some of the things that you currently stepping into, some of the maybe actions that you're taking outside of your comfort zone to grow and to take this to another level?
So I joined essentially a mastermind, a communication mastermind, to help improve my communication skills with my husband. And that was really uncomfortable because I am essentially admitting that I don't know how to do something. When Peter and I have been in a relationship for 25 years, something like that. So to kind of say after all of this time, I need help to understand my partner is it kind of hurts a little bit. And it takes a lot of humility and lots of tears. But that for me has really helped me personally to get to where we are today. And when I do that, I'm giving him space to also be himself, and I invite him into like our relationship, right? Like now I feel like it's more of a partnership instead of this is how we've always done it for the past 20 plus years. And because of that, I feel like he brings ideas and all of these things that maybe I don't know, he may have brought them forward, but when it comes to our business, I feel like more creative. Like, hey, have you thought about this? Can we do this? And I'm slightly more receptive. I'm not saying I'm completely there, but I'm more receptive to his ideas. And so I think it makes our real estate business better because of that, right? And it's so different when I'm in a working environment, like in my company or in my W-2. I'm like a completely different person. And I know when we're kind of in our home base, we tend to maybe fall back into our I guess our like typical tendencies, and we're maybe not always at our best. And so that kind of helps me realign with maybe the person that I want to be for my partner, instead of kind of defaulting into who I was maybe like a year or two ago.
I think you said something beautiful here, or you're pointing towards something beautiful, shining light on something that if we don't pay attention, you mentioned so many years have gone by, a certain way of a relationship was established, and that's normal. And I think if we never question it, if we are never open to it, that we might be wrong or our perspective might be limited and that we are having blind spots, we are also allowing the past of whichever people were around us to speak through those situations. Because most of the behavior, we very unconsciously pick it up over the time and through the exposure to other people. Most of them probably our parents, other relationships around us. And then, so whatever we think is the relationship is also just an accumulation of those impressions throughout our life. So I think it's just beautiful that you're taking time and the effort, and you are humble enough to not only take this step, but also to share it with us, and really shining light on it, and you making a conscious effort to creating a partnership together.
Thanks. I think the more that we talk about the things that aren't normal, it helps normalize our feelings, and that it's okay to feel a certain way. And when we do that, I think that's part of being part of, I mean, for humans, I know having a connection is so normal, right? Like everyone wants to have a connection in some way. And when we start to feel, or when we start to lose that connection, is when we start to feel lonely and that we're detached. And, I'm the only person that feels this way. And so I think normalizing certain topics that aren't typical is really important to kind of make sure people know that, hey, you're not alone and everyone goes through this. And why go through life feeling some kind of way when you can have such a much better fulfilled life? So
yeah, 100%. I think there's a large chunk of emotions that we all feel like, oh, it's just us, whether it's self-doubt, imposter syndrome, all those things. And it's just like that swamp of emotions where we're like, how is it that other people don't have it? And maybe especially in the day of, like, you and me, we're spending quite some time because of our businesses online, looking at other things. And it's so easy to fall into the trap where you see the curated, perfect life of other people. Like, man, they don't look like they have those challenges. But I think at the end of the day, and the more people I speak to, and income class doesn't make a difference, culture to some degree doesn't even make a difference. Everybody has similar challenges within themselves.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I know the reason why, we're in real estate is because we think it's such a great avenue for people to, or a platform for some level of financial independence, or it's a platform to get an introduction into real estate or whatever it is that people are interested in. And because of that, we want to make it normal, right? Because real estate isn't part of your typical education growing up. You don't learn it in high school. If you want to learn about it in university or college, you have to seek it out. So it's not something that's normally said or shared. And it's such a great platform for people to diversify their portfolio. For me as a W-2 employee, stocks, 401ks, I mean, that's common, right? Because majority of the masses, majority of the population, that's something that they are probably in because it's very easy to obtain. It's easier to understand. And I actually learned about stocks in high school. And so it's part of our curriculum, but real estate isn't. And which is why, to me, it's important for us to educate and bring on people who are interested, like, hey, this is how you can do it, or this is how you can enter real estate, and hopefully we can be vehicles for their initial real estate journey if that's what they're interested in.
100%. I actually saw a statistic yesterday of how little basically the overall proportion is of what's publicly traded stock compared to privately traded companies, and then also real estate. And it's like pretty minuscule. I mean, it's compared to the rest of it, and that's the only thing that the general public is exposed to a larger degree. And that, so it's clearly like a product that people are being pushed towards without having like a full spectrum idea of what's available to them.
Yeah, I remember when I was younger, I would always see, apartment buildings, and I always wondered who owns them. And I thought it was just some very, very extremely rich, billionaire that would have to own an apartment. And it wasn't until recently, like, Hans and like we're in the same program. But it wasn't until then that I realized that you could be a normal person, and I consider myself normal for the most part. You can own multi-million-dollar real estate through a syndication, and you don't have to participate in the daily operations. And that's something my parents absolutely did not know about. Like, no way. There's no way that they would ever understand that, know that. would even have seeked it out. And so now that I know that, I want to tell people, hey, you can actually do this, and you can be a part of something really big, and you can, and you don't have to be responsible for like the whole thing as well. You don't have to know everything about real estate, daily operations. You don't have to go, clean up toilets and take out the trash. I mean, it's amazing when you are able to kind of zoom out and see what other people are doing and what some of the possibilities are.
Yeah, and also it's so interesting to look at it backwards. Like now, when I first grew up, obviously we all have a certain circle of people, and it's kind of limited based on their understanding of the world. That's the original lens we start with. Unless we seek additional exposure, it's really hard kind of to break out of that. Today, a lot easier because we have the internet. But it makes all the difference to have different exposure, and it's something. Proximity is power. If you are around a certain kind of people that think a certain way, whether they are more healthy or more wealthy or they have better relationships, it will rub off and it will become a new standard for you. And the interesting thing is now in hindsight, when I go back to my hometown, for example, I know there is one family in particular that was really smart around multifamily. They build to rent and long-term hold. And also the primary business that they have is bottling water out of a source, like right where they are. And both of these businesses are just beautiful. Like now, in hindsight, with the idea of numbers and how businesses operate, I'm just like, wow, they really got it figured out, because the water business is a cash cow for them. It's a very simple business, and it's mainly based on marketing. And what they have is contracts in place with hospitals that basically take truckloads of water for their patients from them. So they don't run around town trying to sell feature water with some nice fancy campaign. They're just selling truckloads of water to local hospitals. And they're also supplying a lot of the local shops here, which is this is how they basically have a very strong cash flow. And they took all of that and built to rent, long hold. And now in hindsight, I'm like, man, it's so smart. Why did nobody else in this town pick up on that, including myself back then?
Well, yeah. I wish they were my family.
No, because this is you have your own lessons and your own learnings, and now you're planting a seed for the next generation. And the thing is, we have to go through our own learnings and our own. It's like generational wealth. I think it's primarily a mindset. It's not about the money. It's yes, to some degree, you need to have the right structures to even be able to pass it on. But the most important is to pass on what's going on in the head of the person that accumulated the wealth and what it takes to sustain it. Because anybody can squander a fortune. Still there?
Oh, yeah, sorry, I'm still here.
Oh, okay. got a bit silent for a second.
That was a really great summary ending. I was overtaken by it, actually. I didn't know what to say to that.
It's okay. Well, this has been a very, very, very different podcast. I will cut out this small piece where we're just kind of free-flowing here right now. But overall, it's been very, very different. I really like how open you are, and yeah, it's just a beautiful conversation.
No, I just love. I feel like you're such an intellectual. Like you can kind of hear it how you reflect in your stories, and how you kind of connect some of your personal experiences and like my stories, and I don't know. You're definitely a lot of fun to talk to, because you're not the typical person that I talk to every day, And I've actually really enjoyed our conversation. Like I really feel like if we were in the '60s, like you'd be like kind of like the Andy Warhol type. Like we would just go and talk about art and just social. I don't know. That's kind of how I imagine our relationship to be.
I'll meet you at the opium den tonight.
That's right.
I mean, Andy Warhol is quite wild. I'm not. Have you seen like? I went to an exhibition in New York about him and kind of the lifestyle he had. That's quite a comparison.
It's okay. We can bring in some enhancements.
Over. So, Anna, one of the questions that I love to ask too is, and I think in our conversation we already spoke to it to a large degree, but what do you consider a life well lived?
So I would say I think you have to understand the reason behind why you're doing something. And so I mentioned, kind of building my relationship with my husband. To me, that's really important because, like we said, that's pretty much the foundation, at least for me, our relationship and my not only personal well-being, but safety, like mentally, physically, financially. Like when we're a strong one unit household, everything, like we can have any type of issue, problem come our way, and I know we'll figure it out. And so I think if understanding why you're doing something, giving yourself a purpose on your decisions or why you chose to live a certain life, and being accepting of that is really important. Otherwise, you just kind of live life, I don't know, kind of lackluster, maybe living life a little gray. And I don't want to live that way. I want to live in technicolor. I want to live in bright neons and colors and lots of colors and gradients. And that's how I want to see life. Like, I think, to me, just understanding why you want to do something is really key to living a life of wealth.
So you basically want to have the most enhanced and enriched experience of life.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be through financial means. It could be personal fulfillment. It could be through just seeing the joy that you bring to your family. And it could be on how you respond to something. And then you see how that kind of is like a trickle effect. Like if you come to a room and you're radiant and you bring energy and joy, I mean, it's hard to come into a room and if someone's smiling, you just kind of smile too, right? Because that's just the nature of it. But if you kind of come into a room and someone's really upset, it rubs off on you. So I'd rather just be able to kind of live a life of just radiance and joy, and I don't know, it's just more fun that way.
It's 100%. It's more fun that way. I mean, you see, if we ever truly have like very radiant people around ourselves, everything becomes nicer, easier, more joyful to work with. And whenever we don't, we should just try to be that radiant person and, lift up everybody around us.
Yeah. And it always starts with yourself, because if you're not happy with yourself, if you're not fulfilled, if you don't have that sense of maybe curiosity or whatever it is that gives you energy, then you're just going to end up sucking the life of everyone around you. And I don't know, that doesn't seem like a very good way to live.
It certainly doesn't. I mean, there's really nothing like having somebody who's genuinely excited and curious. It's if you have somebody who has that kind of energy and vitality, and I think it also makes a big difference in age. For example, one of my friends, he's in his 70s, and just this year, I think he flew to like 3 different countries, continents, not countries, And he's like on the road all the time. In the meantime, some other friends and family members I have maybe that are significantly younger, they're like, oh my God, I don't know if I can take that far car ride or if I can take that trip. And I find it so amazing because I know that the other one also has his own medical challenges. Like, it's not that he's just like all fit, but he has an attitude about it that he's like, I want to go, I want to experience, I want to see. And then there's other individuals that already gave up on themselves. And that's one of the lessons I'm learning more and more, that we can not really help someone who doesn't want to help themselves. And so whenever I see someone who actually wants to find their own light and their own radiance, it excites me and I'm willing to pour myself out. But at the same time, sometimes when I see there's other people who just suck the energy out of us, and we have to be careful that we don't pour ourselves into those individuals because they will take it all.
Yeah, because, and maybe your friend that's a bit older, maybe he's kind of realizing that the time is not limitless. And I think when you're younger, you feel that life is limitless and you can kind of take things slow, or you choose to maybe see things differently, or your mindset is probably in a place that could be better. And I think when you realize that you have maybe a short time here on earth, I think you start to see things differently. And that's how, and I guess kind of a very, how would I say this? Like a very extreme case would be what if I were to die tomorrow, or what if my husband were to die, or my kids were to, die tomorrow, which could happen, right? Like in some freak accident or whatnot, you never know. But if that were to happen, would I have lived a fulfilled life, or would I have given them my best, or would I have regretted anything? And if the answer is yes, then I think that probably warrants an immediate pause and kind of look at, like, what can you do differently so that you answer that in a positive way, so that you answer it in a way that you're proud of it, And I think when you kind of start to do that, maybe frame things a little differently, you see that, life isn't limitless, and, why not start today in living the life that you want versus waiting 5-10 years ago, maybe tomorrow, and then tomorrow ends, and then you lived a life of regret. Like that, to me, it's really sad. And I don't know, and it's really easy to fall into that pattern because maybe you've done things a certain way for so long. And to me, that's really sad.
It's very sad. And I have two prime examples of this in my family. Just 2 generations in a row, which might or might not have also pushed me to look at things differently.
Yeah. And those examples, I mean, I think they serve a purpose. And for those that are willing and open to see it, like yourself, in those examples, like, I don't want to live my life like that because that's not who I want to be, or that's not how I think life is worth, an example of how life should be. So it's an example, and hopefully it's reminders of how blessed we are. Like I am in my current position, and all the maybe accomplishments and achievements that, us as individuals are able to do. And I think as human beings, we're just so amazing. Like we've been able to, basically like learn how to walk and crawl and eat and do all these things, right, that we take for granted, learn how to communicate. And even those basic things, I think we're just so amazing just being human. And I don't know, sometimes I think we just take that for granted.
100%. And as you were saying that, I just had this funny thought that we think that the compounding of money over a couple of decades is impressive, but look at the compounding of evolution that spit out the human at the end of at least evolution on this planet so far.
It's amazing. And it's okay to just maybe not be as successful as our neighbor, as you know, your water multi-family neighbor in your hometown. It's okay to not be them. I think it's great to celebrate them and for their achievements, but we don't have to have the same level of what appears to be financial success and all of that, because everyone within our own means can be happy and successful in our own way. And I think that's the beauty of just being us.
You know, one of the things that I learned being in an ashram with monks in India for some time is those were some of the happiest, most joyful, most fulfilled, not just short moments, longer durations, weeks, months of my life. And I was completely stripped of basically anything that I would consider comfort at home or usually. And that really taught me a lesson that what we think baseline is actually ridiculous looking at the past of humanity. Like what we think is normal, that we can just fly around the world, you know, we can speak in real time all around the world. The level of comfort, convenience, communication, technology, all together is just beyond. And it's so far beyond what we actually need to be very, very joyful.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
Yeah. Well, Anna, this has been quite a conversation. Not so much the normal real estate conversation we had, but I think nevertheless, it's truly the path to wealth, and it came from, I would say, both of our hearts, and there were some real sharings here. So I appreciate you being so open and having such a deep conversation with me.
No, I enjoy the conversation, Hans, and I think no matter what we do or what we're trying to achieve, I think your heart, your inner spirit, your mindset is the foundation of if you're able to get there or if you're able to achieve your goals. And I think it's really important. I know a lot of people kind of talk about maybe the business side or how do we get there, but the lesser things, like the things that we talked about today, is equally, if not more important. So I am really grateful for the conversation and your openness as well.
Yeah. So where can people connect with you? If anybody would like to get in touch?
Yeah, so we are on sweetlifemf.com. That's SUITELIFEMF. You can find us on our website, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And you can also set some time if you'd like to chat further on any strategies, or maybe you want to talk a little bit more on the personal side of things and how we're managing on what we do. But we're always looking for new friends, and if you're interested in perhaps the next real estate opportunity, which we talked about maybe for 5 minutes, I'm always open to it, and just really excited to be part of anyone's real estate journey, whether or not they decide to be a part of ours, or we just love mentoring. And one of the things that Peter and I do at our work, actually, people come to us to talk about real estate and what's the next steps and what do we recommend to them. And so mentorship and giving back to anyone that's newer in their journey, we love doing that.
Yeah. And I think it's so rewarding. It's like the sharing and it's something that I didn't see coming. It's like to be able to share the knowledge that is part of our journey is one of the most rewarding aspects of it all.
Couldn't have said that any better.
Well, Anna, Thanks again. This was just a very, very wonderful and beautiful conversation.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you for joining us at The Path to Wealth. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Check out our upcoming guests and be sure to share it with all your friends and family that want to take their life to the next level of wealth.